Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cruise Shop Save. I'm Melissa, and this Friday I have a really special guest. We met when we were on a show with the Cruise Amigos. It was quite a while ago. And then since then, I've been following him, and he puts out some really great video and content to do with the US, because I'm here in the UK, he's in Florida. And so, what I wanted to do is interview him today because, of course, we have big news this week. The US has started sailing again, which is really awesome. But if you're watching this for the first time, thank you so much. Do subscribe. Head over to Cruise Shop Save. We provide free maps, free content. We're all about trying to support local businesses in the cruise ship destinations. And so, but without further ado, here's my guest, Tyler. How are you, Tyler?
Hey, doing well, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me on the program. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I know you're a very busy guy. Your show is called The Tyler Show. Is that right?
Yes, that's the main channel, the Tyler Show.
Cool. But you're also called the Cruise Junkie.
Yeah, so this is my branding in the future. So just stay tuned for that name. It'll pop up in a few years. This is something I'm working on. So give it time, folks. And it's something big's in the work with that. But I can't
Oh,
comment on what's in the works. But
oh,
something's big in
I'm
the
so
works with that.
excited. Oh my goodness. Well, I love your shows and you're always so professional. I'm terrible. I don't even have headset yet or a microphone. And but you and I met on the Cruise Amigos show. They had a few guests on board on that show. And then I started following you and I've been watching your videos, which have been really cool. How many videos do you put out a week roughly?
So my goal is to produce 2 videos a week, one actual video and a live stream. However, recently, just due to the amount of content with heading over to cruising, we're not can't cruise right now, which luckily that's changing. But I plan ahead of port travel every single week, but of course scheduling can't quite work it out. So instead, what we're doing is we're doing a live show almost every single Friday at 5 o'clock. And if I can't do a live show and I have a video ready to come out, I'll publish that video for premiere every Friday at 5 o'clock. So that is my time slot as of right now. And also every other Sunday, if everything works out with everything down here in Florida, I plan to do a Cruise Junkie live show where I recap this whole entire week in the whole entire cruise industry with the news from all the major cruise lines all around the world. Does not matter where it is from. That is where I publish all the latest news stories and talk about it with guests some weeks every single Sunday.
Cool. Well, I tell you something. The news is changing so fast. A weekly show is there's always new content. There's always stuff to talk about. But let's talk about you. How did you get into cruising?
Yeah, so my first cruise was all the way back in 2014 on board the Brilliance of the Seas out of the port of Tampa. It was a 4-night cruise to Cozumel and Key West, Florida, when that port call was still a thing. And yeah, it was an amazing cruise. The weather was actually surprisingly really good because my next cruise was on the same ship a few years later, I believe in 2015 or so. And we did almost the same itinerary, except Cozumel was, I should say, Key West was off the ballot. And so instead, we just did a sailing from Tampa to Cozumel, and the weather was terrible. And I was kind of regretting going on that sailing. The seas, I mean, like, words can't describe how bad the seas were because we were in the Gulf and it was the winter time. And of course, the Gulf, for the folks who aren't familiar, the Gulf here, the Gulf of Mexico, it's very calm during the summer and most of the years. But when the winter, when we get those tropical storms or something, it's terrible with seas. So yeah, that's
Right.
my cruise starting up. We did Brilliance of the Seas. That's the ship I have the fondest memories of because that was my first cruise ship.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So you say that typically there's a time of year where the Gulf of Mexico is rocky. What is that time roughly?
It really, the time of year really is around February and January when the winter, because it's really because the cold, because we don't really get that cold here in Florida, but when we do get cold, usually there's low pressure storms, and that causes the wind to rip up the Gulf and make it very wavy. Which again, the Gulf, for most folks who are familiar, it's really like a lake. There's usually
Yeah.
never any major storms unless there's either the summer months with a hurricane or the winter months with these cold fronts where they come and create all this waves in the Gulf, which creates for some really rough sailings at sometimes.
Well, I got to say, you never know what you're going to get on a cruise. you can't not cruise just in case.
Yeah.
But usually, you know, the captain's really good and is able to steer the ship away, or, you know, speed up or slow down to try and avoid the worst of the weather. And oftentimes they chase the sun, right?
Yeah, we were on the Harmony recently in 2019, and we had there was hurricanes. So we here in Florida, we had a hurricane 2 weeks before we sailed. Luckily, that was only a Category 1, so it wasn't that much damage. And then the week before we were about to sail, there was 2 tropical depressions, and those narrowly hit us. We were afraid that our cruise was going to get delayed to maybe a 6-night cruise, because it was literally the night before our cruise, it hit Port Canaveral. But it was only a tropical depression, which is the lowest of storms. So again, on the way back, because we went down to the Caribbean to St. Martin and St. Thomas, on the way back, we had some pretty rough seas on the way back, which we couldn't avoid. And the captain came on the thing and he said they couldn't avoid it just because it was pretty. It was very sunny out. You couldn't tell, but the waves were just very, very rough, which the Harmony of the Seas, which is a mega ship, was listing about 5 degrees, which the captain says it was the worst the ship has felt since its sea trials. But overall, yeah, again, I agree with you, Melissa. You cannot predict the weather, and the captain does try his best to get everything under control.
Yeah, no, they do a really, really good job, and the ships have really evolved over the years, and you know they're a lot. They're much easier, because I'm the older ship. Oh my God, you'd be rocking and rolling all over the place. You'd be clinging onto the side of the bed.
Yeah.
But you mentioned 2 ports there in Florida, Tampa Bay and Port Canaveral. So there are quite a few cruise ports to sail out of from in Florida. What are the other cruise ports?
So outside of Port Canaveral and Tampa Bay, we have the Port of West Palm Beach, which is only occupied by Bahama Paradise Cruise Line. We have Jacksonville, that's occupied by one of the Carnival Cruise Line's Fantasy class ships. We have Fort Lauderdale, which is used by all the major cruise lines, at least the top 3. Norwegian doesn't visit there anymore, but Carnival with Princess is really known for out of that port. So does Holland America, Royal Caribbean, Celebrity. They use Fort Lauderdale. Then there's the Port of Miami, which that's the most cruise lines use that port. That is used by almost every single cruise line. Crystal. We have Silver Sea. Almost all the cruise lines in any market uses that. Disney sails there occasionally on the falls. And yeah, so those are the major cruise ports here in Florida. Now, the other used to be major cruise stop was Key West, but unfortunately, due to everything with this whole 2020 election thing, they had to unfortunately end that decade of cruise ships being there. As of right now, however, the state of Florida is trying to veto that law by basically making another law to veto the Key West cruise ban, if that makes any sense. So yeah, as of right now, I believe there's 6 cruise ship protocols and embarkation and disembarkation ports in the state of Florida. But I do know they are also trying to get some other ports online in the Gulf, such as Pensacola with the Viking, but we haven't heard much of those materialize so far.
That's interesting. So you mentioned about Key West. This is something I'm not familiar about. So for myself and people listening at home, what is going on with Key West?
So in Key West, in last year, 2020, we had, of course, the big presidential election here. And also that's time is also where they put the locals can put petitions on the ballot. And one of the petitions or laws they want to bring would basically limit the port to 1,000 guests and crew combined today. So they can basically only have one small ship, which again, all the cruise ships in the industry now that sail out of Florida, they're way above the number they were throwing around. And another thing is they could go over the 1,000 if they was a environmentally friendly ship. So if they had like LNG or something, they could, well, as part of the ballot. However, if fast forward about 3 months or so, in December of 2020, the people at the Florida Senate basically made a law that basically where local governments, such as, for example, Key West, Miami, Port Canaveral, Cape Canaveral, they couldn't limit the seaport. So only the state has control over the seaport with limiting like ships or something. So that law passed. It passed the Senate here in Florida. It passed the House, and I believe it's signed by the governor. There was rumors that the bill was dead, but supposedly it did pass, and that could save Key West to allow cruise ships to come back. But again, we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out, because so many of these stories I cover here in the cruise industry, they say something happens and then you fast forward 2 weeks and the whole bill is gone and the story's changed.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had not heard that. I guess being here in the UK, we don't hear that's kind of like local news, but it's big news because I know as a UK person and a lot of my friends, they like to fly over to Florida. They get on a ship in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, and typically Bahamas, Key West, Bahamas, Cozumel, and back. That's big news. How come I never heard about that? I can't believe it. So currently, right now, that has not changed.
Yeah, as of right now, there's still that ban in effect, and most cruise lines has removed Key West from the itinerary. I know Royal Caribbean, I believe, sometime earlier this year, they were switched all cruises stopping at Key West to either Bimini in the Bahamas or Grand Bahama Island.
Gosh, and how do you feel as an expert in cruising? How do you feel about it? Because on the one hand, it is a small place, a little bit like Venice in Italy. It's a beautiful place. It's and when there are a lot of cruise ships, and some of those ships are 3,000 plus passengers, it is crowded, and you can imagine the aftermath of having all those people on such a small area. So I get it in a way, but 1,000 is too small, no?
Yeah, I personally feel that this ban is not good for the economy. People saying, oh, if the people who go on cruise ships spend less money in the ports than people who drive into Key West. But the problem with getting to Key West is you can take a chartered flight, but most major airlines do not fly to Key West. So the only major way to get there with mass tourism is cruise ships. You could drive from Miami, but that's a good 4.5 hour or so drive down to Key West. So yeah, the big thing that the locals used to pass it was saying that cruise ship people who go and stop at the port spend no money, and they just basically don't contribute to the local economy, which of course we know is not true. And now with this cruise ship ban going into effect, I know some of my other friends here on YouTube, their friends own businesses down there in Key West, and they say that one of them had to close up permanently because of banning cruise ships. If the 2020 cruise industry shutdown wasn't worse for this industry or this city, this big cruise ship ban was terrible.
Oh, that is really sad news because I'm all about supporting local businesses and cruise ship destinations. When I work, for 25 years, I've run shopping programs, and I, for one, know that Key West benefits greatly from the guests, the fabulous shops, the conch train, all those amazing local tour. But the thing is, it's not just about guests spending money ashore. It's also about the jobs. All these tour companies and retail establishments and restaurants and bars, Sloppy Joe's and the Key Lime Pie Shop and all those places, they employ people from Florida. So this is really not good news. I did not know this, Tyler. Why did I
Yeah,
know
it's
this?
definitely not at all good news for Key West. And yeah, again, it's a devastating effect for the local economy. However, supposedly the locals, they claim that this isn't going to actually affect them, but I personally think they will. And in a few years, they'll be regretting their decision. But we'll have to wait and see how it does play out.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it is a very unique place. It's a gorgeous place. But let's see. We're asking all of you if you'd like to put comments. Let us know what you think about it. I did not know about it. This is the first time I'm finding out. Tyler, you and I need to talk more often because I'm really behind the news.
There's so much news to get to every single week in the cruise industry. I mean, it's like a full-time job keeping track of it. That's why I have the biggest respects to the cruise news channels that cover it every single day, because it's so much news.
So much news. So what's on the cards for you? When's your next cruise?
I don't have one booked as of right now because, of course, I was afraid cruising wasn't going to happen this year because with all the CDC conditional framework test cruises, which that's a big deal here in Florida. The test cruises are not going great. But we'll talk about that a little later. But as of right now, yeah, to answer your question, I have no cruises booked, but are looking at doing one cruise later this year. We have two lines in choice, but we're just waiting to see what their protocols are. because the cruise lines have released their protocols, but they haven't released like the onboard experience protocols, which we're really looking at doing. Because Royal Caribbean released their protocols and for their Florida cruises, and they're kind of, I'm personally not a favor of them. Not just because the masking, but really just the segregated venues. It's not really a good move, I think. So we're trying to see some other lines to see if they can fix that issue. But as of right now, yeah, no cruises on the books, but hopefully that will change and we'll get on a cruise this fall.
I hope so too. And then will you come back and tell me all about it?
Absolutely.
That sounds good. So when when you're doing your videos and stuff, where do you get all your material from for your videos?
Yeah, so for cruise news, I have three sources. One of my biggest sources is cruiseindustrynews.com. They update it every single day. They're unbiased, which that's the thing. A lot of these news sources, they're biased. Either they're for the industry, against the industry, or so Cruise Industry News is very unbiased, which try to get all the news from there. That's my main source for getting the information. Other sources, of course, cruiseradio.net, great resource. If you're looking for Royal Caribbean news, I also get mine from royalcaribbeanblog.com. And occasionally I'll get some hearsay or rumors from cruisecritic.com. They always have some great rumors. Some of them are don't actually turn up to anything, but there are definitely some great rumors on Cruise Critic. But yeah, those are my sources. I majorly get the news from every single day. And I wish there was more sources. That's the problem. There's other sources like Cruise Hive and stuff. The problem with a lot of sources is they'll get one story and you'll hear the same story copied on all the other websites. So those are the main sources I get because they're either original stories or they're straight from the cruise line.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like Cruise Industry News. And I don't know how you do it. I really take my hat off to you because I'm not in the business of doing the news. I find it's so much work. I really respect what you do, Tyler, because I tried it once and I just thought, man, this is hard just to get this news across. But your personality, the way you come across in your videos, it's much, you're a lot more engaging than some of the other videos I've watched. And also the way you summarize all the news, it's much more interesting to watch one of your videos. Typically, how long are your videos where you're summarizing the news?
Yeah, so I used to do weekly like videos like Tony from Alia Loca, but I stopped doing that and instead I'll just do a live stream instead because we can interact with the people in the chat, hear their opinions. So I usually do like a half an hour live stream about the news so I know I can summarize everything. I also don't want to keep it going on too long, so I don't even hear me reading other stories that aren't as important. So I try to make them half an hour so I can get the most crucial things you need to know and not waste any of people's time. So that's my goal. With doing the news on the Tyler Show. Also, I'm experimenting with other cruise news videos on my second channel, the Cruise Junkie. Those are usually around 3 or 4 minutes long because I try to cut out all the other information that you don't need to hear. So,
right.
That's the thing about filming a video is you'll film a video for like 10 minutes and you'll cut it down and only be like 3 minutes long. So that's the thing with editing. You'll spend like a whole day filming a video and it's 10 minutes long.
I know. I don't think people realize how much work you do. It's you've got this 3-minute video. People look at it and go, that must be easy. Well, I can tell you folks, it's not. I tried it. It's really not. And I've decided just to do interviews like this so that I can interview personalities. I don't have to do any editing. It's just done, but it's entertaining at the same time. So let me ask you, going back to all the ports, the port destinations in Florida, would you recommend people come and stay a couple of days before and explore those places? And if so, which ones are the best ones?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many amazing places here in Florida. I'm actually doing a series right now called Vacationing from Florida Space Coast. And yeah, I basically show you around the local area around Port Canaveral, show you all these amazing things. Port Canaveral, this is one of the ports I visit frequently, so I have the most knowledge about it. But that port is just amazing. There's so many amazing things to do, eat, see, shop. It's crazy. Like, for example, Port Canaveral, you could spend literally 2 days there and still not even see the whole area. So that's one of my top to go things to do. If you're here in the area, Florida Space Coast, absolutely amazing. And if you're lucky, because you maybe even catch a rocket launch at Port Canaveral. So yeah, that's one of my things. Also, if you go down to like Fort Lauderdale, Port Miami, there's so many things down there in Miami to do. definitely, if you're down there in Florida, spend some time exploring the local areas. There's so many amazing tourist attraction, local places. It's really amazing just how much things we have to do around the local cruise ports.
Oh, I totally agree. And, especially if you fly in from the UK or Europe, when we're able to travel a bit more, which fingers crossed we will soon, it's definitely worth it. You go that far, and there's such great ports to sail from. But you mentioned something about the test cruises. How is that going for the companies, the cruise companies?
The ones that actually have done it is going good. So as of right now, the only cruise line that has actually successfully completed or done a test cruise is Royal Caribbean with the MV Freedom of the Seas. They've done that sometime in early or say late July, June, I should say, and then they got their approval to do their first cruise this, I believe, Saturday on July the 2nd, I believe, or Friday, with their first cruise on board the Freedom of the Seas. It's going to be a cruise over to Coco Key and Nassau. They've done good. They got their traditional sailing certificate from the CDC, which basically allows them to conduct revenue cruises. However, there's been two cruise lines that have been attempting to do a test cruise, and they had to cancel because of crew members unfortunately getting the virus. For example, we have a story down here in South Florida with a smaller cruise line called Bahama Paradise Cruise Line. They do 2-night cruises out of the port of West Palm Beach to Freeport, Bahamas on board their one and only ship. They usually actually have two, but unfortunately, due to last year, they had to sell off their former ship, the Grand Celebration, which was a former Carnival Cruise Line ship. So unfortunately, they're back to one ship, and unfortunately, one crew member tested positive. So they're taking that time to quarantine all staff, do testing, make sure that guy tests negative, and then conduct their test sailing on July the 8th. Originally, they were supposed to conduct the simulated voyage on June the 28th, but unfortunately had to move it to July the 28th, and also pushed back their inaugural to July the 10th. We're hoping everything works out with this cruise line because earlier this year they were on the brink of bankruptcy. But again, speaking of simulated voyages not going as planned, Disney Cruise Line, the happiest cruise line on the seven seas, unfortunately had to cancel some of their cruises, or say test cruise that was supposed to depart today out of Port Canaveral on board the Disney Dream. They had to cancel it because they were getting inconsistent test results. So basically, 5 crew members, they tested negative, then they took another test and they tested positive. Then they tested again, they tested negative. So they unfortunately had to cancel and move it back to an unknown date. I will have to wait and see what date they actually come with this new test sailings on board the Disney Dream. But yeah, unfortunately, some test cruises with crew members testing positive have not worked out. So that's why another reason a lot of the major cruise lines here in the U.S. are opting to take the 95% route, which basically makes them bypass test cruises. And also, if a crew member does test positive, like we had on the Celebrity Edge, they can still sail. They just have to remove the crew member from the ship and retest everyone, and they can still sail.
I see. So that's another thing I had never heard before. So what is the 95% test cruise rule?
So the 95% rule here in the US is they can bypass all test cruises and sail with no social distancing and no mask on board if they sail with 95% of all passengers fully vaccinated and 98% of the crew fully vaccinated. No, I don't get where they got the 98% or stuff. The numbers don't really know how they came from. I know they're not scientific because it really does make no sense. But yeah, that's what the CDC says. If they sail with 95 or 98%, they can bypass test cruises, sail with no mask, sail with no social distancing. And yeah, good news. That's why a lot of the cruise lines, such as Carnival, Celebrity, are taking the 95% so they can bypass test cruises.
I see. Well, that makes sense to me. And I like that. But I guess in America, people want the choice of some people don't want to be vaccinated, some people want to wear masks, some people don't. It's completely different over here in the UK, and we've been sailing successfully since the end of May. So in fact, myself, we're going on a cruise in August on the Virgin Scarlet Lady, so we're really looking forward to that, and I will post lots of pictures for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, another reason the
What's
cruise
this?
lines are taking test cruises, I'll point this out, is because like Disney and Royal Caribbean, they're a major family cruise line, and they can't sail with 5% kids. They have to sail with a higher number. So that's another reason why cruise lines like those are taking test sailings.
That makes sense because a lot of the cruises out of the UK are adult only. So you have educated me beyond belief today, Tyler. I did not know all this that was going on in the US. I've been keeping a close eye on in the UK. But this has been great. And thank you so much for your time today. And we want you to come back. Would you please come back maybe in the fall when you take your
Absolutely.
cruise?
Absolutely.
That sounds really, really good. Well, thank you for your time. Now, where should everybody go to follow you? Because I heard you mention you have 2 YouTube channels.
Yeah, so if you want to follow the main channel where I do all the live streams and do the Vacation from Florida Space Coast original series, that is youtube.com/The Tyler Show. And if you also want to follow my second channel where I do occasionally cover the cruise news or some other ship spotting events that are as important to put on the main channel, I cover all that content on the second channel. That is the Cruise Junkie. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at The Cruise Show, where I publish behind the scenes and some cruise photos. That again is Instagram.com/The Cruise Show. So, and also
Right.
Facebook, I think you can follow me at The Cruise Junkie too.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll put all the links at the end of this show. And if you've got any questions for myself or Tyler, definitely put them in there. You never know. This will go out on Friday, the 2nd of July. So today's the 2nd of July. It's pre-recorded, but anything could have happened by the 2nd of July.
Yeah, we hope to have that test cruise depart today too. So July
That's
the
true.
2nd.
Yeah, that'd be good. Well, whatever you do, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for your time, Tyler. Really, really appreciate it. And if you're watching this, please subscribe, recommend us to your friends. We're also on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We are Cruise Shop Save. And whatever you do, have a fantastic weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye.